Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore some absolutely massive, foundation-shaking moments in American history. We're looking closely at the major events of the Civil Rights Movement. Specifically, we're zeroing in on those foundational events and the incredible individuals who took a stand to dismantle legalized segregation once and for all. You know, this isn't just a dry list of dates to memorize. It's a look at the actual catalyst that forced our society to change.
To guide our journey today, I want to pose this core question directly to you. Which specific events of the Civil Rights Movement actually led to positive change for African Americans? I want you to keep this question right in the back of your mind. Let it be the anchor and the lens through which we view everything we're talking about today. We're going to look at the exact actions, the court cases, and the moments of pure resistance that shifted the legal and social landscape. Let's actually map this out to see how it all builds. We're starting way back in 1896 with Plessy v. Ferguson, jumping forward to 1951 with the Mountain Walkout, hitting the landmark Brown v. Board decision in '54, and wrapping up with two absolute turning points in 1955, the tragic murder of Emmett Till and the Montgomery bus boycott.
All right, part one, separate but never equal. To really grasp the magnitude of the Civil Rights Movement, we first have to understand the legal reality of the time. Way back in 1896, the Supreme Court basically legalized segregation, with the ruling known as separate but equal. But, as you probably know, the grim reality on the ground was an entirely different story. Separate was literally never equal. It was a system built entirely on economic and psychological discrimination, resulting in totally inferior facilities and drastically lower funding across the board for African Americans. So that brings us to Section 2, the 1951 Student Walkout.
Now, what's really interesting about this grassroots action is the age of its leader, 16. I mean, think about that. In 1951, a 16-year-old high school student named Barbara Johns decided she had simply had enough. She organized a 2-week strike against entrenched, legalized segregation right at her own high school in Farmville, Virginia. Talk about bravery, right?
So how does a local high school walkout turn into a national game changer? It basically happened in 3 steps. Step 1, Barbara and her classmates protested the severe overcrowding and terrible conditions at Moton High School, those inferior facilities we were just talking about. Step 2, their organized action was just undeniable. It caught the eye of the NAACP, who agreed to take their case to the courts. And step 3, this is the crazy part, this local student protest eventually got rolled up and became a key part of the massive Brown v. Board of Education case. From a high school hallway straight to the national stage.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the Brown v. Board victory.
This was, without a doubt, a monumental victory that shook the entire country. In 1954, the Supreme Court officially slammed the gavel and declared that segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. Boom. Just like that, the 1896 separate but equal precedent was totally dismantled as the law of the land in schools.
And the brilliant legal mind who argued and secured this massive victory for the NAACP? That was lawyer Thurgood Marshall. His work on this case fundamentally rewired the United States. And, in just an incredible historical full-circle moment, Thurgood Marshall would later go on to become the very first African American to serve as a justice on that exact same Supreme Court.
We're moving into Section 4 now, the murder of Emmett Till.
So the crucial point to understand here, and this is a profoundly somber, tragic chapter in our history, is just how incredibly young he was. Emmett Till was only 14. Just a teenager when he was killed in Mississippi in 1955. It's absolutely heartbreaking, but it really exposed the ruthless reality of the racial violence occurring at the time.
The facts of this injustice are incredibly tough to hear, but absolutely vital to understand. Emmett was kidnapped and murdered by 2 white men, supposedly over an interaction between the teenager and the wife of one of the men. The men were arrested, they went to trial, but the jury found them not guilty. And then, shockingly, in a 1957 magazine interview, these same 2 men openly admitted that, yeah, they actually did murder Emmett. This blatant, horrifying miscarriage of justice brought a massive spotlight to the systemic racial violence in Mississippi and throughout the South. It was a wake-up call the country simply couldn't ignore anymore.
All right, Section 5, the Montgomery bus boycott.
The direct spark that set this massive movement into motion happened on December 1st, 1955. And you probably know her name, Rosa Parks. Her refusal to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, was exactly the catalyst the community needed to launch a full-scale boycott of the entire city's bus system.
Now, to lead this massive logistical and social puzzle, the community tapped a young minister named Martin Luther King Jr. Stepping up to lead the Montgomery bus boycott was really what propelled him into the national spotlight, utilizing his incredible voice to guide this peaceful but fiercely determined protest.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, unbelievable endurance of the African American community in Montgomery. They didn't ride the city buses for over a year. Let that sink in. The boycott lasted from December 5, 1955, all the way to December 20, 1956. Through rain, freezing cold, intense social pressure, they organized carpools, they walked miles to work every single day, and they held the line for over 380 days.
And you know what? That staggering endurance paid off big time. The boycott successfully ended when the Supreme Court stepped in and ruled that segregation on buses was illegal. Once again, organized collective action absolutely forced the highest court in the land to tear down another huge piece of that separate but equal doctrine.
We've seen how the trajectory of history was literally bent by these events. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. If a 16-year-old's high school walkout and a community's grueling year-long bus boycott were powerful enough to dismantle entrenched legalized segregation, what everyday actions could shape the future today? You know, history isn't just a bunch of stuff that happened to people a long time ago. It's actively created by ordinary individuals deciding to take a stand. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this closer look at these incredible catalysts leaves you inspired to keep digging into this history